Well, President Bola Tinubu has signed into law a bill seeking a 300% increase in salaries and allowances for judicial officials. In a statement, a special advisor to the President on Senate matters, Bashir Lado, said the increase underscores Tinubu's commitment to the welfare of Nigerian workers. In June, the Senate approved the bill after it passed a third reading. Lado said the new act prescribes salaries and allowances for judicial officers to reflect changing realities.
Right, we have a lawyer and a rise analyst, Frank Tietie, joining us now in the studio. Thank you, so good to see you. I mean, you must be excited about this, considering the fact that over 2 decades, judicial officials have not received any salary increases. Your thoughts on this? Timely?
With Mr. Feelings, first, we should commend the president, because we are talking about the judicial sectors. Judicial sector would say that doesn't have activists who can, raise alarm that say that they are dying of hunger, the way Nigerians want to protest, and say that their salaries are too small. But a number of senior advocates, particularly Sebastian Horn, had led a call for the increase of the salaries of and allowances of judicial officers. So this comes with mixed feelings, in the sense that we had a president, the immediate past president, when he came on board, he announced that the judiciary was his headache, and within barely a year, he set the DSS raging after the Justice of the Supreme Court invading their homes in the middle of the night. And then we have a new president that comes this time around, being very careful about the judiciary, and caring, I would say, by introducing a bill and then speedily signing it into law that has increased their salary. So the mixed feeling is this. One would have thought that, increasing the salaries of justices of the Supreme Court and other judges of the Federal High Court and Court of Appeal should have come with some measure of judicial reform, because that's the call.
Yeah, some would say this is where the reforms begin.
No, not quite, because, we've got an embarrassing report staring us in the face. In 2023, the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crimes, in conjunction with the National Bureau of Statistics, declared by first form of experience survey, according to Nigerians, that the judiciary received the largest chunk of bribes in that year. So, but the question is, the members of the judiciary, irrespective of how small their salaries could have been, are not expected in any way to take bribes. So it doesn't matter whether you increase it with 300% or 1,000%, it will not also stem the tide of bribery and corruption being alleged against the judiciary, considering that the amount we're talking about, 300%, simply puts the Supreme Court just at you just know Nigeria. So the annual salary to be about 64 million. And interestingly, that's not his basic. His basic is around 13 million naira. So what's that? I mean, for serving and practicing lawyers, senior advocates, they look at that as chicken feed. So here are people, even all high court judges taking decisions on making determinations with regards to billions, determinations with regards to billions of naira worth of cases every day, and then you go home with just 1 million naira as basic salary, because much of that goes to buying newspapers and then paying legal assistants and all of that. So I still think it's paltry because of the enormous work. As a lawyer myself, when you prepare briefs, and you dare consider that there is a judge over there who will have to read those briefs. Well, much of what lawyers do is to copy already existing judgments because of the principle of stare decisis. You stay by already what is decided by the courts above, and then you paste, and don't always pasting judgments, ratio for judges to read. You know that judges' work it's very difficult, but owners also think that just a paltry sum of 6.5 million annually is voted to a whole justice of the Supreme Court to pay a legal assistant. I think I still don't. I'm not very impressed. Part of my mixed feeling, yes.
No, Frank, I think your feelings are well placed because if you go to any sector of our national life, and I'm quite sure if you bring an expert in that sector, he or she would tell you how paltry the take-home pay is. And that brings us to the judicial reform you highlighted earlier. Away from salaries, because it can never be enough for anyone, not even for journalists.
Yes.
So,
say that again?
What kind of reforms do you think that this administration especially the National Assembly, can activate with the speed of passing the national anthem. Yes, because I love that speed, so we mustn't run away from that speed.
It would have been good that that speed is replicated in very many areas.
Beautiful. So let's talk about that.
See, there's been a difficulty in the way the judges, express and use their discretion in making determinations. It's become an embarrassment. And one of which is that, judges, there should be a limitation of how judges make such sweeping orders that cause a lot of confusion, especially during elections and then in course of, other parts of our national life. Now, again, we expect that in terms of reforms, apart from the issue of recruitment, which has been bedeviled with a so-called nepotism and what Odinkalu has, taken up as an activist, campaign to reform, is that there's too much loyalty, not to the state, not to the people, but to certain personalities that actually ensured that these judges emerged as candidates and then ultimately appointed. But again, what's more important is this: the perception among the ordinary Nigerian that the judiciary takes the largest chunk of bribes that have been given. Over 700 billion bribes, according 700 billion of bribes given in 2023, judiciary was said to have taken the largest of that chunk. It's not as if you can prove any judge who has demanded bribe. However, there are persons specialized, either lawyers or other forms of agents, who announce, especially during election tussles, electoral cases, that say, oh, apart from the fees you're paying me, you will still have to bring fees that will be given to the judges. And that inflates it. So the perception in the minds of Nigerians is that, oh, if this, especially the political class, if such amount is being voted for judges, it means that they must be very corrupt. Not as if that there is any proven case. Because that same survey...
So it's a perception.
It's a perception. And that is what the Nigerians think of judiciary. But when you ask of reforms, one more important thing is that we should try as much as possible to ensure that judges do no longer determine those persons who win elections. It's not because, according to Sam Amadi, he believes that when politicians now go to war, when they go to elections, instead of thinking of how to pay the lawyers serious money, they preserve the money. They don't even buy votes anymore. They simply aim at buying the judges. That kind of perception is wrong. So we cannot. We should expect some legislative reform in the area, because judges cannot. Because the president, in this latest call for judicial reforms, when he to the National Assembly, was saying there should be, but the judiciary should reform itself. It's not possible. So we expect that the National Assembly should think out the laws and then ensure that judges, they will limit the powers of judges.
You actually made a point earlier that the president is careful or caring.
Yes, caring. I prefer caring.
I wonder which one
caring.
Really it is. Because some are saying, could this be an inducement of the judiciary?
Or probably a reward. A reward. The other president was probably very angry with judiciary because for several times he contested elections and lost, and the approach judiciary also lost. And then the moment he was elected president, from nowhere he announced that he was going to fight against corruption, but that judiciary, in his words, quote, the judiciary was his headache. I'm talking about former President Muhammadu Buhari. Right, so he vilified the judiciary even before he started. So and then he took time to punish the judiciary. Apart from the humiliation, he did not bother to increase their salaries. But here we are, a president who actually went through the tussle of election tribunal. It was hotly contested, and then eventually the judges declared the president. They could have also declared him otherwise, that he didn't win. They could have sacked him. So a reward for what? It's also a perception, because now he feels that the sector has been favorable to him. Why should he punish the sector the way his predecessor did?
Okay, well, Frank, it's a fine place for us to leave it. But again, when we talk about reforms, I think this conversation is a conversation that we look forward to having you back here in the studios. Frank Tietie, Arise News analyst and lawyer. Many thanks for speaking with us.